I helped a lot of people get cancellation through public service loan forgiveness, even though they didn't think they qualified. A lot of people don't know whether they work for a qualifying employer or not. And one of the requirements is that you're a full-time employee by a nonprofit or government entity. It can be at the federal level, state, local, tribal, city. And so that's the employment requirement. And a lot of people don't know that. And I say this, if you like your job or you plan, if let's say you are working in public service, if you like your job or you don't plan on going anywhere else anytime soon, and you've been in repayment, why not? It doesn't cost you to apply to the program. It doesn't cost you to apply for forgiveness. Go ahead, enroll in the program, get on the lowest payment plan possible, and let it ride out while you collect your paycheck and do other things. And then 10 years in repayment in that program, your loans are gone.
Welcome everybody back to another exciting show, the About That Water podcast, where I have an amazing person who is going to talk to us about student loans. And I cannot say this enough. Thank you so much for coming on. Nika Booth, please give a round of applause for her.
What's up, Anthony? Thank you so much for having me on today.
I know it's been so long, and ever since I met you, like we had so much energy, and I was like, who is this person? But I'm gonna try to match my energy. I cannot match your energy for nothing.
Oh, stop. No, we're good. No. Like, I think the first time I met you was it was at an event that Jenny and Tiffany spoke at. And then we caught up again at FinCon, and it was a whole vibe. So your good times. I love your energy. You do a great job at matching, by the way. And so I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, so let's go down and get into it, because student loans right now is already complicated as heck. A lot of people right now are either paying their student loans and just really don't know what to do with the rest of their lives because they didn't budget for how much it is, and it's so complicated. So can you just kind of talk about, like, do you even know why it's so complicated?
Yeah, because they made it that way. So it's primarily complicated because the system, I'm not going to say that the student lending system was set up for our demise from the very onset, right? But it's hard not to say that. You couple that with the way the economy is, and if I'm being completely honest, Black Americans have a different experience with student loans because we have all these other systemic barriers and inequities that make it very challenging to navigate that system, especially after graduating or leaving school and entering into repayment. And then, to be honest, nobody read their promissory note. Like, as an 18-year-old, right, graduating from high school, going into college, all I was focused on was paying, finding a way to pay for college. And my family didn't have the money, so student loans was the only way we could go. And there was this push to go to college, it's good debt. So I skipped right on past the promissory note, and it's like, okay, where do I sign? I just want the money because I, and I'm sure a lot of people had this pressure, especially as first generation college students, to go, right? So no one was paying attention to that. But I have not read a promissory note still to date, even with my work in student loans. But there's a lot of details in how student lending, student loans, and repayment works, the terms and conditions for each of the loans that we decide to take on to fund a higher education. And this is why we're kind of caught up in this web of miscommunication and suffocating debt, and debt that just doesn't seem like it wants to go away, even if we're making payments for years. And it's because of the way student loans are structured. Student loans, and I don't want to let me know if I'm going too far into it, but student loans accrue interest in a way that it's called capitalized interest. And student loans are the only type of debt, not auto loans, not credit cards, not mortgages, that has interest accruing. And then if that interest isn't satisfied or paid with your next payment, it gets added onto your loan balance. And then that new balance, which was your original balance or the balance before, plus the new interest, that starts to accrue interest as well. And so this is how a lot of people have seen their student loan balances balloon over years, even though they're making payments, they're not making the progress. And so there's a lot of, it's very nuanced. There are a lot of layers in this whole student loan system. And unfortunately, many of us are caught in the middle of it, not being able to really get ahead.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I found myself inside that whole mix as well,
Yeah.
is because being the first time to I guess you could say in my immediate family to actually do my master's degree,
Mm-hmm.
and going through that program, that process, I was like, okay, I finally understood what the heck student loans were
Yeah.
after my undergrad. But I was like, well, let me try to defer it some more. So let me go ahead on and go get my master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
So help me out to figure out to get a job that will pay enough to
Yeah.
actually cover it. Because I think at the time it was like $1,000 in the income based
Okay.
repayment plans.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's ridiculous.
It is. And the crazy thing is that adds to all this complicatedness. The news is constantly changing, especially in the last few years, which I am grateful that there's an administration that is focused on student debt, right? And trying to fix the issues within the system. There's still a whole lot more work that needs to be done. But it's ever changing information. And then there are 50 million repayment plans. And it's hard for people to know when the information comes out, what applies to them, what doesn't apply to them, and really trying to find like a balance in repayment and managing other financial obligations and goals. It's just like, like why, for a long time, society was like, go to school, go to school. And it's like, we want to achieve the American dream, whatever that is today or whatever that is to you. And yet student loans end up being a barrier or a roadblock now to that American dream. It's really insane. And it's definitely, why I've become so passionate. Like, you've seen on Instagram, like I use that as a way to document my own debt payoff journey. And I had six-figure student loan debt. I had like over $130,000 of student loan debt.
Mm.
And that page actually mirrored my debt payoff journey. And once I got to deciding what to do with my student loans and how I was going to tackle them, I started to like dig 10 toes down in everything that was coming out about student loans because it applied to me. But then I realized, why they write this mess so complicated? Nobody understands this. Let me go ahead and read it,
Mhm.
bring it, take it all in and break it down so that people know like what they're talking about and what actually applies to them and how to apply it. But not everybody's doing that. And unfortunately, there's still this gap where there are people without this information or with misinformation. And so obviously I'm going off on a tangent, but I appreciate you um, handing me the mic so that I, to utilize your platform to get this information out because we're talking 40 million people
Yeah.
like with student loan debt who are in need of some type of relief.
So how did you like what are the some of the key things that you found that were helpful or resources that people could take advantage of today?
Studentaid.gov. Now, I
Okay.
say that it's a great, like, normally government sites are trash, right?
They
But
are.
studentaid.gov really is like the repository for all things federal student loans. And I definitely need to caveat that when I talk, I'm mainly talking about federal student loans. And that's just because there's so much more going on with them. And there's so many more options for them versus like private loans from like a bank or a lender. And so studentaid.gov is the resource that I tell people to go to. It's actually very well written on there, but you can find everything from your personal dashboard to finding out who your loan servicer is, to seeing what loans or what type of financial aid you've received overall, including grants. It's also a place where you can determine like what repayment plan is best for you, like what to do while you're in school, kind of what to do once you get out of school. And there are some gaps, don't get me wrong, but it really is a great starting point to figuring out the mess you may find yourself in.
Yeah, and I found it pretty helpful. Talking about like at least when the Save program came out, and I was
Yeah,
like, oh, let me try this out versus
yeah,
the other one because it's a little cheaper. But
yep,
it seemed like with my finances the way they are right now, I might need to go
yep.
back to them and have them reevaluate that price.
Yep. Now, but I will say this though, for anyone who, including you, for anyone who is on Save or thinking about Save, there is an element of Save that's going to kick in July of this year where the discretionary income calculation or percentage like is going to get lower, which means that your payment, your monthly payment is likely to become lower. So it's going to be, so like if you have undergraduate loans, the discretionary income will be like 5%. So discretionary income, for anyone who doesn't know, it's like money left over after taxes and essentials. Like it's your take home pay. And then after you pay your essentials like housing and food, like that's discretionary income. And that's what they base your payment on. So if you have undergraduate loans, it's going to be based on 5% of your discretionary income. And if you have graduate and both undergraduate and graduate, it'll be a average between 5 to 10%. So people could actually see their balances, their student loan payments get lower come July. So just keep that in mind too.
All right, I'll keep that in mind because also one of the things that I'm trying to take advantage of, which is the PLSF program,
PSLF. Uh
right?
huh.
Yep,
Yep.
which is a public service loan forgiveness program.
You got it.
And dealing with that, I have to say it's been a hassle because right now Mohila, gotta love him,
Oh gosh.
miscalculated
Of
my
course they did.
years of being in the service
Of
in
course
the
they
public
did.
service. So
Yeah.
I gotta send them an email and be
Uh
like,
huh.
hey, you gotta redo this.
Yeah.
So what is the benefits that you've seen about it?
Of public service loan forgiveness.
Yeah.
Listen, that's how I got my loans
Oh.
canceled. Okay. So okay, so like I said, I was in like $130,000 of student loan debt, and no, I did not take out $130,000. I that was 20 additional $1,000, a $20,000
Wow.
additional in interest. Okay, than what I originally borrowed. Like that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the capitalized interest. That interest just kept going and going and going, and primarily it kept going because I would defer or I would put my loans in forbearance because I didn't for money management, also just not having the literacy around student loans and how they work. So I kept putting off payments. And so that interest kept accruing. But back to public service loan forgiveness. I also was a federal employee. And at the time that I was really looking into pursuing public service loan forgiveness or being in the program and making sure each year I was doing the requirements, for the program to stay in it, the previous administration, their secretary of education was like, nah, I'm gonna put up all this red tape. I don't care
Mm,
if you qualify or you meet the requirements, I'm not approving you. And so the approval rating was 2%.
wow.
2%. So I just learned on a White House briefing recently that before President Biden, not campaigning, but before President Biden came in, I want to say like a few thousand people, maybe like 2,000 or 7,000 people actually got approved for, and the number could be smaller. I could be misquoting, but obviously there's been a lot more. So fast forward, the Biden administration had announced a public service loan forgiveness waiver in October of 2021. And that waiver was going to give retroactive credit to people who had applied and got denied, like I said, from the previous administration's red tape, or that had periods of forbearance or deferment. And as a result of that waiver, I got public service loan forgiveness. So I got a total of $133,375 canceled, and that happened in January of last year.
Wow,
So for
congrats.
anyone, right? Thank you. So honestly, one of the questions that I get a lot is, oh, does this apply to me? And is it worth it? Well, here's the deal. I helped a lot of people get cancellation through public service loan forgiveness, even though they didn't think they qualified. A lot of people don't know whether they work for a qualifying employer or not. And one of the requirements is that you're full-time employee by a nonprofit or government entity. It can be at the federal level, state, local, tribal, city. And so that's the employment requirement. And a lot of people don't know that. And I say this, if you like your job, or you plan, if let's say you are working in public service, if you like your job, or you don't plan on going anywhere else anytime soon, and you've been in repayment, why not? It doesn't cost you to apply to the program. It doesn't cost you to apply for forgiveness. Go ahead, enroll in the program, get on the lowest payment plan possible, and let it ride out while you collect your paycheck and do other things. And then 10 years in repayment in that program, your loans are gone.
That,
Interest and all.
I'm trying to think of like some people who might work in like for the private sector,
Yeah.
but they also support the public sector. So like
Yeah.
say like government contractors, do they qualify for the PIA?
Maybe. And so this is a bit nuanced, and I may not have all the details, but I can point you to studentaid.gov, right? Because again, because that's where all the information is.
Right.
So recently, the administration changed some of the employment requirements around adjunct faculty teaching at colleges or universities on a part-time basis, as well as contractors. But the thing about the contractors, like the people who support nonprofit or public
Public.
service organizations, it's a state specific thing. So,
Mm.
for example, if your state that you work in does not allow those public service organizations or nonprofits to hire directly to carry out their mission, and they have to contract it, then you may qualify for public service loan forgiveness, or the program itself and or the forgiveness. But that's going to be based on your state's requirements for direct hire. I know that probably wasn't enough information, but you can go to studentaid.gov under PSLF to find out more detail. And that's a relatively new feature, and I don't personally know anyone who's been able to benefit from that yet.
Got you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for that. Because I'm gonna actually take a look into that because I've definitely been contracted for some time. I might get some
Yeah,
of these
please
years back,
do.
right?
Yeah.
And I'll keep you posted because you've been at the White House, White House correspondence and everything like that out there stomping with the big dog commander in chief. How was that, by the way?
It was, it's surreal. And I
Okay.
do this thing, vulnerable moment. I do this thing where, and I'm sure it's a trauma response. It's
Okay.
definitely from childhood. Okay.
Okay.
I do this thing where something good can happen, and I don't intentionally downplay it, but I don't stand in the moment. Like, I don't take the time to really take it all in. I just move on to the next thing. And
Mhm.
so I'm going to answer your question as if I stood in the moment. It was amazing. So I've
Okay.
actually been to the White House twice. So the
What?
first time, we were in the Rose Garden. It was a
Mhm.
beautiful day. We were in the Rose Garden. There were a couple other personal finance experts that were there. And President Biden spoke on like his hidden junk fee initiative. And then the second time I went, it was more intimate. We were in the state dining room, and I came this close. I mean, that man was right in front of me, and I probably should have put my hand out to
Right.
just say, hey, thanks for your work in the student loan space. I didn't, but it was so cool. And then I've been on a couple of virtual briefings since then with like senior leaders in economics and certain policies since then. So it's actually pretty cool. I do like being able to say I'm a regular invitee, to the White House or White House events.
Mm,
But honestly, it's not, there's not anything special about me in that. What it is that the White House, government in general, is realizing people get their information from people they trust. And
yes.
that's not always news, right? That is social media. And while there is, you know, things, misinformation that can be spread through social media, there's also people like us who are, trying to improve financial literacy and empower people in their money decisions. And so, that's probably the real reason why they invited me to the White House. But
Okay.
it's a great feeling nonetheless, and definitely something I'm happy to put on my resume.
Awesome. Right. Because I was up here looking like, what? She's summoned in the White House. We can't even say hi. Like, we could have met for dinner or something.
I mean,
Lunch.
listen, Anthony, I'm here in your city.
Oh,
Like
well,
we
let's
can
make it
get
happen. All right.
together.
We're going to make this happen.
Okay,
All
cool.
right. Go see these
Let's do
cherry
lunch or dinner.
blossoms.
It works
Right.
for me.
Okay. Now because we talked about a lot of stuff about personal finance, getting our stories together, but this part is about you. So what habits or skills that you feel is going to take you to that next level?
It's about me, like
Yeah.
me and my money, or like me and my business. They two different things.
I love the separation. How about you and your money?
Me and my money. Honestly, I need to know more. I mean, I've got the basics, right? I know
Mhm.
how to save, I know how to budget, I know how to invest to an extent for myself. I think what I really need to start leaning into, especially as I'm getting older and my mother is getting older, is planning for that. Like planning to help her, because this is also something that a lot of people aren't talking about. It's where, are you a millennial?
Yes, I'm considered a
Okay.
millennial.
Okay, I gotta make sure before I
Oh
throw
my
some
god.
shade. No, I'm
God.
kidding. But millennials have this, and I'm not saying that other generations aren't don't have this and won't go through it. But we're in this weird space where we're trying to get our stuff together, and we may have parents that aren't fully together,
Yeah.
right? And so we have to start planning for their aging and their diminished capacity for working, or supplementing for their retirement, because maybe like my mom took out parent plus loans for me, and they're done, but that also meant that she wasn't able to do other things. And so at this point, I am needing to lean into someone else who has that expertise, because I don't have it in, I guess, family planning or retirement planning or long-term care, elder planning for my mom, because like the writing's on the wall, right? And knowing what we know now um, about how money works in personal finances, I think that's the next thing. I don't know what skill that is, but there's definitely the next thing on my list of things to you know, get more information about and start planning for, because I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I have interviewed several people who do the retirement planning and also have resources for people who are getting to that uh as you say that mindset or that stage in life.
Yeah.
And I call it really the sandwich generation where
Yes.
you're taking care of your parents, but also you got some people who have kids, you got to take care
Yeah.
of the kids too. So you're taking care of
Yep.
a full household. And it's
Yes.
usually around the people that are in their 40s, their mid 40s, early 50s. No matter how the needle stays the same. It's just like how
Yes.
you move along in your stages of life. It's just some
Yeah.
reason around that time frame, you're in that sandwich generation.
Yeah.
And we all gonna go through it.
We
It's just a
are.
matter of like how you want to handle it.
Yeah. And I guess maybe because I'm a millennial, I'm an elder millennial, but
Mhm.
I see it in my peers too. Like I see it in my friends. And it's like what we talk about all the time, like adulthood is the worst hood.
Tell me about it. Like, yo, bills at the bills. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, I even forgot about that bill. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, you need to
Yeah.
keep electricity on.
Yeah. But when it comes to my own finances, I am, very much, I just opened my first, well, not my first, but I just opened a solo 401k.
Hey, very good.
Right. So now I get to take some of the business profits and I get to invest them for retirement, both as the owner of the business and as the employee within the business. And
Nice.
so that's really what I'm focused on. I couldn't, a couple of years ago, I wouldn't even be having this conversation with you about like planning for my mom's retirement or opening a 401k for my business because I was so saddled with debt. I was so debt constrained. I couldn't see through that, right? All I saw was the debt. And it was such a hindrance for me being able to do other things, especially, long term wealth planning. And so, yeah, I'm standing 10 toes down, as the young folks say,
The
in
young
both my
folks.
retirement as well as preparing for my mom's transition out of the workplace.
Got you. And I'm sure you're going to document that journey as well.
Absolutely. I will.
As before we recorded, I just want to say again, I love the hairstyle.
Thank
It's
you.
great. It suits you.
Thank you.
So anything you want to leave the audience before we dive into the final four questions?
Yeah. So aside from student loans, if you happen to be sitting there, you've got debt, you don't know where to start, I've got 3 tips for you. First and foremost, sit down and create a budget. I know a lot of people don't want to do that. They don't like to call it a budget, call it whatever you want to call it a spending plan, but it gives you permission to use your money. And that'll just give you an idea of where your money is going, whether you need to cut some things out or whether you need to increase your income. And sometimes it's both. That's one of the things I ended up doing when I was on my debt payoff journey. The other thing is really to sit down and come face to face with your debt total. I remember personally avoiding the mail, avoiding phone calls, but it's not going to go away until you make it go away. So sit down, look at your credit report, open up those that mail, open up those emails with those statements, that come, and just list all of your debt. Just tell who you owe, how much you owe and when you owe it, like what your minimum payment is. And then develop a strategy to tackle it. You don't have to, no one's expecting you to tackle it all at once. You're only one person. I had a mountain of 6-figure debt and I'm one person. And I was going to take my time. It was going to take me however long it was going to take me to pay that off. But you can decide to tackle your smallest debt first and then move on to the next, or tackle your debt with the largest or highest interest rate first. Just choose a plan. It's okay if you switch it up, but those are like 3 steps that I give people to start that process of paying down the debt. Because the more debt you pay down, the more cash flow you have and freedom you have to use your money the way and how it matters to you. I mean, my name is Debt Free Gonna Be, and that's a declaration. It's a declaration for me and you. You're gonna be debt free. So I just wanted to share that because I know that there are people listening who don't know how to start or are intimidated to start, but it's starting is the most crucial step.
Definitely. Yeah, that number two, your number two was an eye opener for me because that's one of the
Yeah.
things that got me started on my whole journey was, you know, I need to really see what it say. I wanted to cry about it,
Yeah.
but crying isn't gonna pay the bills. So
No.
yeah, you gotta figure out a plan, make that plan. And that's where I did your number two first, then did number one, and then
Okay.
doing number three. Yeah.
Yep. That's cool.
Yeah.
As long as
Um,
you get it done.
right.
Yep.
That's the point. All right. So you ready for the final four questions?
I think so.
All righty. Number one, what does wealth mean to you?
Options and a restful and adequate night's sleep.
Yes.
That's important.
Right, adequate. Number two, what was your worst money mistake?
Student loans, hands down. To be clear, I
Okay.
don't regret my education. I regret the lack of education around student loans. I took on the maximum amount of student loans every single semester and got a refund check. And I can't tell you what I spent that refund check on, but I did not, also because I was 18, did not understand the gravity of this is money you have to pay back, and life may not happen the way you think it's going to happen, because again, most of us went to school thinking, oh, I get a college degree, I'm automatically going to get a higher paying job and I'll be able to pay this back. And that is not the case for everyone. And that's important to acknowledge, because oftentimes, especially when I'm talking about student loan cancellation, there are people who are opposed to it, and they'll say, well, if I paid off my loans, you can too. But we're not all telling the same story. And we don't all have the same journey, especially after graduating, even with a degree, even with a master's degree. And so I'm going to land the plane. I just regret my lack of knowledge around my student loans. I would, if I did it over again, I probably would have exhausted every opportunity I could, like grants and scholarships, or delayed going to school and not giving into the pressure of going. And then if I needed to take on student loan debt, I would have taken only what I needed if I had to do it over again.
Man, if I had to do it, yeah, I probably would have never went.
That
Because
too. I mean,
it's like, think about it, like,
yeah,
the pressure, it's a lot.
yeah. And then some people, I mean, I'm grateful that I use my degree in my day to day, but there are people who don't. And so
Mhm.
it's, in a frame somewhere, sitting in a closet or in the basement or some. I mean, well, at least yours is on display, you
Yeah.
know? But imagine, still paying for a degree 10, 20 years after you've graduated and you're
Mhm.
not even using it.
Yeah. I don't know. And that's one of the things that, because I graduated with elementary education, and the teachers don't get paid that much, but yet they require the most education.
Oh my
So
goodness.
you got to really create a master's, and even to be like a good principal, you need a master's plus
Hmm.
additional education.
Yeah.
And then if not that, then to even be a professor at a college, like you have to have, yeah, you can be a master's, but you have to be an adjunct to then finally get your PhD. And it's like
Yeah.
to make the same amount as a engineer coming fresh
It's
out of
crazy.
college. Yeah.
That part. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
We need to probably just another episode just to ROI on education.
Listen, I'm here for it.
All right. Number three. What is your favorite financial or non-financial book?
Definitely, it's non-financial. Definitely boundaries. I learned a lot reading that book, especially how a lack of boundaries shows up with how you use and treat your money. A lot of us, just going back and speaking about, the sandwich generation, um, a lot of us also don't have clear or healthy boundaries with family and friends, mainly family, when it comes to money. And that book was a game changer, because just because somebody calls you up and says, hey, I'm short on this, can you give me money? Like, regardless of their relationship with you, it does not give them you're not an ATM. It doesn't give them automatic access to your money. And having a healthy boundary to be able to communicate whether you can or can't, and what your uh, stipulations are around that. Like, I will give this to you, but, or I will give this to you, and I need you to do this in return. Like, I think it can help ensure that, again, you keep more of your money, because that should be the primary goal, to keep more of your money for the things that you need it for, not
Right.
somebody else's emergency. So I would honestly say, even though it's not a financial book, boundaries definitely cross into various aspects of life, including your finances.
Yeah. I have so many episodes on boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, that
I
book, if
keep
I was
coming
to
up.
if I was to go get that book for you, like, you would see how many pages have been turned, folded in, highlighted. Like, it was just so, I think I cried actually reading it.
Oh.
Yeah. But now I'm the boundary queen.
Like, yo, can I borrow $5?
No.
No.
And that is a complete sentence. No.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's see. We'll see who takes care of the tip. Can you get good? No.
Can we split the bill? You
No.
got a drink. I didn't. No.
Oh, that's a whole nother. All right. Yeah, we're gonna have to have it.
Bring me back on.
We got to bring it back on. Number 4.
Yeah.
What is your favorite dish to make or eat?
Oh, not and eat or
Okay,
eat.
Or eat.
Dang. Okay, so friend, I'm gonna tell you this thing about me, okay?
Okay.
I am a Taurus. I am a foodie through and through. I will travel for food.
Yes.
But what happens is when I try something like, and it's new from, not necessarily the cuisine is new, but the place might be new, I will hyper fixate on that joint for a minute. Okay. So recently I went, I'm not going to share the restaurant name because I'll need everybody trying to get there and then I won't be able to get a reservation. But I went to this spot that is North African, Middle Eastern cuisine, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I tell you, oh, it was so good. Anyway, so I would say my favorite type of food to eat is anything not American. It is usually something that is ethnic. So it's Ethiopian, Middle Eastern, Mexican, it's something like that. Thai, Vietnamese, it's something ethnic. And I love food so much. It's such an experience for me. I can't really pinpoint any particular, like I'm not picky. I'll try anything at least once. Yeah. I just like to eat.
Okay.
But my favorite thing, and I know you said but my favorite thing, I'm basic.
Okay.
Wings in the air fryer. Let me tell you something. You spray a little oil on them and you season them up. You know, if you ain't sneezing, it ain't seasoned.
Yep.
Pop them in. That's like my go-to air fryer wings. They get so crispy.
So what's your go-to seasoning? So
okay, so it depends on how I'm feeling. Half the time I just grab something and don't even know where I'm grabbing. But it's obviously the base, which is sea salt, garlic powder, onion powder, cayenne pepper.
Ooh.
That's the base, right?
Okay.
But I also have like seasoning mixes from different places or places that I've traveled to. And I might throw that in there. You got to be careful though, because you don't want it to be too much sodium. But I'll mix things. Trader Joe's has good seasonings. I've got some seasonings that a best friend of mine brought me back from Morocco. Listen, just mix it up, experiment. So I don't really have a favorite combination, but that base is always there. I like a little heat and it's got to be seasoned.
Okay. All right. Well, like she said, y'all, if you ain't sneezing, it ain't seasoned. So make sure y'all y'all take some photos. If y'all listen to this episode and y'all gonna cook y'all air fryer chicken, I want to see some photos. Tag both of us.
15 minutes on 380 and then additional 5 minutes on 400. It'll give you the crispiest, moistest, if there's a word, right. Chicken wings. Let me tell you, so good and perfect every single time.
I never thought about changing the temperature for the different times. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. It's even the best for last, I guess.
It's that 5 minutes at 400 that makes it crispy because they're already cooked by the 15 minutes at 380. Right. But you take it up for 5 minutes. Yep. All nice and crispy.
We own it. Man. All right. So thank you so much, Nika.
Thank you.
This has been amazing. So we finally get to do this.
I know, right? And I expect a lunch or dinner invitation shortly after.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Y'all be safe. Be out.
Bye.